Skyscraper window cleaners of Reddit. What is most bizarre thing you've ever seen on the job? I once had a bookcase collapse on me in my office. As I was laying on the floor under a pile of books and shelves, I heard a knock. There was a window cleaner at the window trying not to laugh and asking if I was okay. My grandfather met my grandma while working as a window washer. He put his phone number right up against the glass of her office and hoped she wrote it down. She didn't call and they've been married for 60 years. He must have been a handsome dude. Pretty sure a window washer that does something like that today loses his job, lol. One time in college I answered a help wanted ad for a window cleaner. I thought it was going to be one of these high-rise jobs. Instead, when I showed up the interview, it was some methy looking guy in a parking lot. I spent the day with him going from house to house cleaning people's windows. He told me to pretend I was his nephew and he kept introducing me to customers that way. Then when we were cleaning windows he kept telling me his fantasies of ducking the housewives. It was super weird. Plus, he chewed tobacco and while driving would spit the juice between his legs onto the floor of his ratty truck. Then at the end of the day he told me it was just an audition and tried not to pay me. One of the strangest days of my life. Friend was fresh out of the shower sitting at her computer desk naked when the window cleaners were at her place. She heard a noise, so she turned around to see two men outside her third-story window. So she screams and runs into the bathroom to hide. Later she calls the building management to complain and they tell her that a notice went out and she must not have seen it. Then building management decided to ask the window cleaning service to send those guys to her apartment to knock on the door and apologize to her. Hilariously awkward. I was visiting my grandparents in a high-rise. Looking out their windows a few stories up. As the window cleaners went by, I happily watched them clean. Hands folded behind my back. Because the windows were a one-way type thing where they were basically mirrors from the outside in. I knew this because I'd seen the building from the outside. Unbeknownst to me, the level of reflectivity changes pretty drastically depending on the time of day. And I realized that when the window cleaners were going by, they had to wash the windows while some weirdo, me, stood about 12 inches from the window watching their form. I am not a window cleaner, but a paramedic. We got a call once to a suicidal window cleaner guy once. We could see what was going on as we approached. He was swinging around and doing tricks in between each wipe of the window. Like giant swinging leaps and who knows what else. The police had him come down and asked him what he was doing. And he said he just really loves his job. So we told him he needs to be safe and left him to go back to work. Not a skyscraper cleaner, but the person on the other side of the window. I was using a single occupancy restroom on the 22nd floor of a building that had a floor to ceiling glass window along the side of the toilet. Weird. I know. Anyways, I'm taking a wicked crap. And I was wearing a romper. So sitting there in just a bra. With my romper around my ankles. Sheeting my little heart out. I saw the window washer and was a little startled but thought the windows were tinted, it was fine. Alas. We accidentally made eye contact as I was standing up to wipe my ass. Clearly tinting does not work up close. Could have died. Well, I was washing the outside of the windows at the group home I work at. State was coming by later that week and I was super bored. I walk up to one of my dude's bedroom windows to wash it off and apparently he hears me outside somehow even though he had his radio turned up to about 9 ducking thousand. Like he always does. He rips up his blinds. Toads naked. And starts slapping himself repeatedly in the forehead and screaming. This was pretty normal for him. But it's definitely the strangest thing I've ever seen so far in my life while washing a window. Not a skyscraper window washer, but was a janitor who had to wash the windows in a 6-story building as part of my job, so I used a mix of ladders and rappelling down from the roof with a harness to clean the outside windows. One day I was washing the outside windows on the executive floor where all the bosses and higher up employees had their offices. I was done with one window, so I moved to the next window and looked in and saw the CEO of the company snorting something in his office with the door locked and the lights off. He looked up and saw me in the window and we made an uncomfortable eye contact for about 15 seconds, then I just pretended I saw nothing and kept washing the windows. Never spoke a word about it to him or anyone in the office, but the last day I worked there he gave me a farewell card with $200 in it and a free solar powered portable phone charger that the company produced and sold. Okay. So not exactly what OP was asking for, but a funny story nonetheless. I was in medical school on my psychiatry rotation at the local VA hospital. We're in the 6th floor inpatient psych unit seeing a guy with schizoaffective disorder. We were asking him about any hallucinations or delusions he may have been having. And he tells us that he was seeing ropes outside his window and was worried people were trying to get into his room. Seeing that there were clearly no ropes outside his window, we made note of his persistent symptoms and went about our rounds. About half an hour later we get to another patient's room and we suddenly see ropes dropping from the roof down the side of the building. Turns out the poor guy wasn't hallucinating, they were just cleaning the windows. Lol. Not a window cleaner, but do have a couple of stories. My parents were having the windows changed one day and didn't warn me. So I went to bed nude. It was summer and British houses are designed for heat. Woke up the next morning to scaffolding being put up. Luckily my bed was hidden so they couldn't see me. But I had to hide in the corner of my bed and text my mum to get some clothes for me to wear. A guy I briefly dated told me the story of the time his parents forgot to tell him they were having the windows cleaned. His entire family went out for the day, so he decided to whack one out. Nude. With his blinds open. Just as he's on the edge he looks up and sees a very uncomfortable man at his window trying to clean it. One day I was playing some game on my PC when some guy knocked on my window. I opened it. He asked if I could plug in an extension cord into a wall socket. I took the cable, plugged it in and sat back down at the PC. Moments later I remembered that I was on the 4th floor and did a wait a second. Head turn. As it turns out, one of my neighbors hired a crew with a boom lift to inspect and do any necessary repairs on the outside of our apartment block. I am not a window washer, but I have seen them outside of my son's hospital room, dressed as superheroes. A story of them visiting our local hospital can be found here. My son was in the hospital and after I spent the night there with him, I went home to shower and do a few things around the house and probably get a proper night's sleep. The next morning I was reading the newspaper and read an article about superhero window washers visiting a children's hospital in Pittsburgh. When I went back down to the hospital I was planning to see if the hospital's administration had seen the article. I guess someone had, because before I go the chance to speak to someone, Spider-Man and Superman were outside our 10th floor room. It was SOOOCOOOL. My son was so excited. My uncle is a former window cleaner and he said his most memorable moments were when he lived and worked in Rotorua, which at the time was the crime capital of New Zealand. The most bizarre was when he saw some naked guy, obviously high on something, getting Benny Hill chased up and down a street by the police. The second most bizarre was when he heard a crash, followed by a van tire bouncing down the street that was being chased by a massive Maori guy who proceeded to throw the tire over his shoulder and wander off whistling as if nothing had happened. I was once cleaning a skyscraper where I know nearly everyone that works there. I saw a job interviewer having gay sex with another guy, probably someone he interviewed. The interviewer, who is straight, married and has kids, gave me $500 not to tell anyone. Easiest money I ever made. Not as exciting as the other stories, but something I'm blown away by when I'm on ropes is how many people feel guilty about not working when I'm around. When you look into people's workstations you can see that almost no one works. Most people are on Facebook, YouTube or on news sites. But the second they notice me outside the window they quickly switch to an Excel spreadsheet. Like they think I'm some kind of productivity spy about to rat them out to management. Keep cruising the internet, people. Don't mind me. And also, pointing to the window and saying you missed a spot isn't funny. Duck you. My condo building was having the windows cleaned. Being a teenager, I forgot. I was in my room with my girlfriend at the time. I start hearing this noise and think that's weird. There's no floor above us. So I stop and start turning my head. I'm still on top of her, when bam. Ladder appears at my window. Middle-aged window cleaner sees us. Starts laughing. I jump up naked, covering myself, and run for the remote for the automatic blinds. Pressed the button and stood there in front of the cleaner while my blinds slowly VVVVVRRRRRRRR. I stand there buck naked for a good minute while the cleaner and my GF laugh their asses off. Not a window cleaner, but was caught by one while jerking off. They never cleaned the windows in 9 years of living here, and the one day they arrive unannounced. This happens. So embarrassing. I'm not a window cleaner, but there was this one time I was wiping my ass with a pterodactyl porno while a bookshelf fell on me and I creepily stared at them to assert dominance. It was a normal morning and I had just began cleaning windows. I'm cleaning one with the blind down, not really paying attention. I realize that the blind is slowly rising, and when it finishes opening I see him. Cricket legend Brett Lee doing yoga. Will never forget that day. Once while cleaning a high-rise apartment, an old lady kindly asked me if I was hungry and proceeded to open her window and hand me a pizza slice. So I sat there, 27 stories up, tangling on my chair and eating pizza. It was a good day. I used to live in a high-rise condo. Sometimes the window cleaners go up the side of the building where my small bathroom window is. One Saturday morning after a crazy night out, I ended up needing to take a really spicy beer sheet. So I opened up the window and sat down on my toilet, hungover, with my eyes closed, thinking about where I went wrong in my life choices that lead me to this moment where death seemed like a reasonable alternative. Then I hear my window close. Apparently the window cleaner needed to close it to go up higher. Cue the slow ascent of their window elevator thing. They saw me destroying my toilet. We made eye contact and I gave him the universal nod of understanding. He gave me one back and continued his slow ascent upwards at like an inch a second. And edit. Holy crap. I didn't realize the way I worded the story made it seem like I was either sitting or sheeting off my ledge, so I added a little italicized edit. I mean sat down on the toilet. I'm not suicidal, but I'm sure we've all had that hangover where you become borderline just for a while. Not a window washer, but I was working construction on a new tower. A bunch of guys were beating up on the 11th floor to start the day. As I come walking up I can see they are all staring out the window at the tower across the street where this guy's holding up a pair of legs going to town. After the finish is up another dude stands up and all the old boys start freaking out. They were just watching and enjoying two guys getting down. We had just gotten down to the 17th floor of a 30-story apartment building next to Rittenhouse Square in Philadelphia when I realized that I had to take a massive sheet. It was pretty much out of the question to take the scaffolding all the way down to the first floor and back up to the 17th so I could poop. It would just take too long. Lucky for me the apartments had no residents yet. So I climbed in from the balcony and did my business in one of the toilets. And lucky for me the apartments had no residents yet. So there was no toilet paper. Wound up using some of our microfiber towels we had with us and didn't really have a choice but to leave them in the apartment. I don't clean windows, but I work from scaffolding and do rope access work on high-rise and skyscrapers in Nick all the time. It's not that often I see something bizarre, and I'll see in 200s of apartments a year. So I honestly feel many of the posts in here are made up. Sure, you occasionally see the caught off guard tenant, but if you do see someone they usually just wave and shut their curtain blind. The most bizarre thing I've seen though has to be when I found a section of loose brick about 15 stories up. I removed them to put them in my satchel as usual and found dozens of used condoms shoved behind the brick. Like, how the duck? I still have no idea to this day. Was in King's Cross in Sydney about 15 years ago, when I finished my drop and landed on a lower roof. I witnessed a working girl giving a guy in a wheelchair a BJ. He looked at me and gave me the thumbs up. Nearly fell over laughing. I kid you not. When working on a job, a bird flew into the window and everyone inside was looking dead at me. I later found that they thought I was trying to be funny and get their attention. I am not a window cleaner, but I know a lot of people will probably comment that are not window cleaners but no window cleaners. Not a skyscraper window cleaner. But I can speak on behalf of one who was there when someone in my dad's office accidentally let a bouncy ball hit the window and then proceed to walk into the window when he got up and reached for it. Right when the cleaner was there. I'm not a window cleaner. But I own a pair of binoculars and live across the street from a hotel. I've seen all sorts of strange things. The weirdest had to be this: looking into one of the rooms, I see a naked man sit down at the vanity and proceed to paint a full clown mask onto his face and wander around the room. He was wearing a bald cap but didn't own a wig. He continued to pace the room for a few minutes, sat down and wiped the makeup off of his face. He then disappeared from into the bathroom. I never saw him again.